What if everything you've been told about faith, purpose, and the way to connect with God was never meant for you? What if the very place you were taught to find truth is the one keeping you from it? You sit in a pew week after week, listening to the same words, singing the same songs, repeating rituals that feel more like habit than heart. But deep down, so deep it sometimes hurts, you know something's missing. The fire you once felt has dimmed. The passion has faded. And now all you have left is routine. So tell me this, are you still chasing God or just the idea of Him? Let's talk about something most people are too afraid to even whisper. God's chosen never go to any church. Not because they don't believe, not because they don't care, but because their connection to the divine runs deeper than stained glass, louder than sermons, and stronger than tradition. They don't need a building to pray. They don't wait for Sunday to seek truth. Their lives are the altar. Their choices are the offering. Their presence is the miracle. You see, the world has conditioned us to believe that holiness lives behind doors, under banners, and inside programs. We've been sold the lie that we need permission to be spiritual, that someone else must interpret Scripture, lead worship, or guide our prayers. But what if the real power was always within you? What if your spirit wasn't meant to be contained by walls or confined by rules? What if you were never made to fit inside a system, but to carry divinity wherever you walk? There's a reason why history's greatest prophets, visionaries, and game changers didn't rise from the comfort of religious institutions. Moses found God in the wilderness. John the Baptist lived on locusts and wild honey. Jesus often withdrew from crowds to pray alone. These weren't accidents. They were awakenings, moments when men who had heard the voice of heaven could no longer live by man-made doctrine. They stepped out, not in rebellion, but in alignment with a higher calling. And here's the truth that will shake you. Being chosen doesn't mean you're better than anyone else. It means you're different. It means you feel things others don't. You question what others accept. You wake up at night with thoughts that won't let you sleep. You carry a burden of purpose that no sermon can ease. You were not placed on this earth to blend in. You were born to stand out, to break through, to walk where others fear to tread. But let's get real. Walking away from tradition isn't easy. It's painful. It's lonely. It means losing people who used to understand you. It means silence when you expect applause. It means choosing truth over comfort, even when comfort feels safer. Because once you hear the voice of God without a middleman, you'll never be satisfied with secondhand spirituality again. So why am I telling you this? Because I know you're watching this video not just out of curiosity, but out of hunger. A hunger for something real, something alive, something that moves beyond the surface of life and touches the core of who you are. You want to stop pretending. You want to stop going through the motions. You want to stop asking for permission to live the life you were called to. This is your invitation to stop waiting. Stop searching in places that don't satisfy. Stop looking outside yourself for validation you already carry inside. If you've ever felt like an outsider in a crowd of believers, like you don't quite fit into the mold, like you were created for more than what religion offers, then you are exactly where you need to be right now, because the next few minutes will change how you see everything. You'll begin to understand why those truly chosen don't rely on buildings or rituals. You'll discover what it really means to be set apart. You'll learn how to recognize the chains of tradition and how to break free from them. And most importantly, you'll find clarity on your own path, the one that doesn't require approval, only courage. So if you're ready to stop living small and start walking in the fullness of who you are, if you're ready to stop fitting in and start rising up, then keep listening. Because this message is not just for the masses, it's for the few, the ones who were handpicked before time began, the ones who carry light in darkness, the ones who were never meant to stay in the shadows. God's chosen never go to any church. They are the church, living proof that holiness walks among us, not in steeples, but in souls, not in seats, but in steps taken toward destiny. And if you're one of them, then this is your moment, your awakening. You're called to step out, stand tall, and become everything you were made to be. You were not placed here to follow someone else's map. You were born with your own compass, one that points not to buildings or traditions, but to truth. And the moment you begin to trust that inner direction, everything changes. Because being chosen is not about elevation, it's about transformation. It's not about being lifted above others, it's about rising above the life that no longer fits you. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly alive in your faith? Not just going through the motions, not just repeating what you've been taught, but feeling it deep in your bones. The kind of faith that moves mountains and silences fear? If you can't remember, that's not a sign of failure. It's a signal, a whisper from within saying, you were made for more than this. Being chosen doesn't mean you've been given an easy path. It means you've been given a purpose so powerful that it reshapes your entire life. It means you carry a light that refuses to be hidden. And whether you've realized it yet or not, that light has already begun to burn through the layers of doubt, fear, and conformity that once held you back. History is filled with people who didn't fit in, who didn't look like prophets or sound like preachers, but changed the world anyway. Moses stuttered. David was the youngest and overlooked. Paul was once a killer before he became a preacher. These weren't perfect people. They were chosen ones. People who heard a voice louder than their circumstances and stepped forward even when they couldn't see the whole way. And that's where you are now, standing at the edge of something greater, not because you've done anything to deserve it, but because something inside you refuses to settle. That fire, it's not random. That longing, it's not a mistake. That ache in your spirit, it's not meant to be ignored. It's your calling knocking, loud and persistent, demanding to be answered. But let's be honest, answering that call isn't comfortable. It means letting go of safety nets that no longer hold you. It means walking away from approval that comes with conditions. It means facing down the voices that say, who do you think you are? But here's the thing, the moment you stop needing permission is the moment your power begins to return. Because being chosen doesn't require validation, it requires conviction. It requires you to believe in something deeper than what you see, to live as if the invisible is more real than the visible, to move through life knowing that every step is guided by something far greater than human understanding. This is not about rejecting community or turning your back on people who care. This is about refusing to let anyone define your relationship with the divine. This is about recognizing that your walk with God is sacred, and no one else gets to write the story for you. Your journey is not less valid because it doesn't match someone else's. In fact, it's more real because it's yours. Think about it. Why would God give you a unique soul, a personal vision, and a distinct voice, only to expect you to live inside someone else's mold? He wouldn't, because you were never made to copy. You were made to create, to lead, to awaken, to become the person only you can be. And that brings us to the most important question of all. What will you do with what you now know? Will you keep pretending everything is fine when you feel like something greater is waiting? Or will you take the next step, even if it's into the unknown? Because the truth is, the unknown isn't as scary as it seems. When you start moving towards your purpose, the path unfolds beneath your feet. Doors open you never knew existed. Strength rises up inside you that you didn't know you had, and suddenly you realize that you were never alone, just preparing. So, if you're ready to stop waiting for someone else to tell you who you are, if you're ready to stop shrinking just to make others comfortable, if you're ready to stop hiding behind tradition and start living in alignment with your highest self, then keep listening, because the next part of this journey is about breaking free, about recognizing the chains that bind you, not with metal, but with expectation, and learning how to walk away from them without looking back. This is your moment, not someday, not after you get your act together, not after everyone approves. Now, right here, right now. The voice that called you from the beginning is still speaking, still guiding, still empowering. All you have to do is answer. And when you do, you won't need a building to tell you where God lives, because you'll feel Him everywhere. In your breath, in your choices, in your courage. You won't need rituals to remind you of purpose, because every step you take will be an offering. You won't need a title to prove your worth, because your presence alone will speak volumes. Because God's chosen never go to any church. They are the movement, the light, the shift, the change the world has been waiting for. And if you've ever felt different, if you've ever known there was something more, then you already know the truth. You were never meant to blend in. You were chosen to rise. You were never meant to live by someone else's rules. You were never designed to fit into a box that was built for another man's purpose. The moment you begin to understand this, something inside you begins to shift. That quiet voice gets louder. That buried fire burns brighter. That deep longing becomes undeniable. And suddenly, the things that once held you back no longer have the power to keep you down. Let me speak plainly. Tradition can be a cage disguised as comfort. It tells you where to go, what to believe, how to pray, when to speak, and when to stay silent. It promises safety while quietly stealing your freedom. It offers structure while subtly suppressing your spirit. And the worst part? Most people never even realize they're trapped until they start hearing a different call. That call is not about rebellion. It's about awakening. It's not about rejecting faith. It's about reclaiming it. It's about recognizing that your connection with the divine was never meant to be filtered through someone else's interpretation or limited by someone else's schedule. You don't need permission to seek truth. You don't need approval to walk in light, or you don't need validation to live with purpose. But let's be honest, walking away from tradition is one of the hardest things you will ever do. Because the moment you stop doing what everyone else is doing, you feel alone. You feel misunderstood. You feel like an outsider in the very place where you once felt safe. And that loneliness, that silence, that rejection, it cuts deeper than most are willing to admit. Yet here's the truth. The pain you feel in stepping out is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of elevation. It's the sound of chains breaking. It's the beginning of a new season. Because every time you choose truth over tradition, courage over comfort, and purpose over popularity, you align yourself with something far greater than human understanding. And that's where real power begins. Not in fitting in, not in following the crowd, but in daring to be different. In choosing to listen to the voice within instead of the voices around you. In refusing to settle for secondhand spirituality when you were made to experience something alive, raw, and personal. Ask yourself, why would God give you a mind to think, a heart to feel, and a soul that longs for more, if He wanted you to simply repeat what others have said? Why would He place dreams in your spirit if He intended for you to ignore them just because they don't match someone else's doctrine? Because He wouldn't, and He didn't. You were created to question, to explore, to grow, to evolve, to live in alignment with truth, not tradition. And when you finally embrace that, everything changes. Your prayers deepen, your vision clarifies, your strength increases, your purpose ignites. So what does this mean for you right now? It means you have a choice. You can continue living by the expectations of others, or you can begin walking in the fullness of who you truly are. You can keep searching for meaning in places that only offer ritual, or you can start finding it in the life you already carry within. This isn't about abandoning faith. It's about embracing it in its purest form. It's about realizing that holiness doesn't live behind walls. It lives within you. That worship doesn't require a building. It flows from your actions. That truth doesn't come from a program. It rises from your own spirit when you learn to listen. And that's where the real battle begins. Not against others, but within yourself. Because the moment you start stepping into your calling, you'll face resistance from the outside world, from those who don't understand, but most of all, from within. Fear will whisper lies. Doubt will try to pull you back. Comfort will tempt you with old ways. But if you've come this far, you already know one thing. You were never made to return to what once held you captive. You were made to rise, to break free, to lead, to become. So ask yourself again, who are you really? What do you truly believe? And what kind of life are you willing to live? Because the answers will shape your destiny. They'll determine whether you remain bound by tradition or step fully into the power of being chosen. Whether you keep looking for truth outside yourself or finally recognize that it's been within you all along. And when you make that shift, when you finally stop needing permission to be who you were born to be, you won't just change your life, you'll change the world. Because God's chosen never go to any church. They are the presence, the light, the movement. And if you've felt the call, if you've heard the whisper, if you've known in your soul that you were made for more, then you already know. Your time is now. You already know what it feels like to be different, to sit in a room full of people who seem to have it all figured out, while you quietly wonder if you were handed the wrong instructions. You've smiled when others cheered, nodded when they preached, and stayed silent when something deep inside told you to speak up. But that silence, it was never meant to last. There's a reason you don't fit into the mold, a reason your spirit stirs when others remain still, a reason your questions burn brighter than their answers. Because you were never made to follow someone else's fire, you were made to carry your own. And that fire is not just for you. It was never meant to stay locked inside your chest, hidden behind routine, or smothered by expectation. It was meant to burn through fear, to light the way for others, to break chains disguised as comfort. That fire inside you, your purpose, your truth, your calling, is not just personal, it's powerful. So ask yourself, why are you still holding back? Is it fear of what others might say, of how they might react, of what you might lose if you stop pretending to believe what everyone else believes? Or maybe it's doubt, the quiet voice that whispers, what if I'm wrong? What if this path leads nowhere? And maybe worst of all, it's comfort, the dangerous illusion that staying where you are is safer than stepping into the unknown. But here's the truth. Comfort kills more dreams than failure ever will, because failure teaches, failure refines, failure proves you tried. But comfort numbs. Comfort silences. Or comfort makes you forget who you really are. You were not created to live numb. You were not placed on this earth to play small. You were not chosen to hide your light under someone else's shadow. You were given that fire for a reason. And now it's time to let it burn. Because every great movement started with one person who refused to settle. Every spiritual awakening began with someone who dared to question. Every revolution was sparked by a soul who no longer wanted to fit in, but chose to stand out. And that same power lives within you right now. You don't need permission to walk in truth. You don't need approval to live with purpose. You don't need validation to follow the call that only you can hear. All you need is the courage to take the first step, to close the door on what no longer serves you, to release the need for control, to trust that even when you can't see the whole way, each step forward brings clarity. And when you do, when you finally decide to rise, something incredible happens. The world begins to shift around you. People notice, not because you shouted your message from the rooftops, but because your presence speaks louder than words. Your peace becomes contagious. Your strength becomes undeniable. Your life becomes proof that something greater is possible. Because that's what being chosen truly means. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you're positioned. It doesn't mean you'll never struggle. It means you'll always rise. It doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you'll move forward anyway. And the moment you start walking in alignment with your highest self, everything begins to change. Doors open that once seemed locked. Opportunities appear that once felt impossible. Strength rises in moments you thought you'd fall. And most importantly, you begin to remember who you really are. Not just another person trying to get by, not just another voice lost in the noise. You are the presence. You are the light. You are the movement. And the world needs what only you can bring. So if you've been waiting for the perfect moment to begin, if you've been looking for the right time to step out, this is it. There is no better season than now, no stronger place than the edge of your own faith, no greater time than the present to say yes to what you've always known but never fully embraced. Because God's chosen never go to any church. They live as the temple. They walk as the truth. They shine as the light. And if you've ever felt different, if you've ever known there was something more, then you already know. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to rise, and the world is waiting for the fire only you can bring. You already know what it means to feel alone in your calling, to look around and see everyone moving in one direction while something deep inside pulls you another. You felt it in the quiet moments, when the world was silent and all you could hear was the echo of a voice that said, You were made for more than this. And even though no one else seemed to understand, you couldn't ignore it. That voice doesn't go away. It grows louder the more you listen. It becomes clearer the more you walk. And the moment you stop waiting for permission and start stepping into who you truly are, you begin to realize something powerful. You were never meant to live someone else's dream. You were never supposed to follow a path that leads someone else's destiny. You were created to blaze your own trail, to walk where others fear to go, to carry light into places that have only known darkness. And that kind of life doesn't come from fitting in. It comes from rising up. But let's talk about what that really takes. Because walking in your purpose isn't just about passion or vision. It's about sacrifice. It's about letting go of approval, of comfort, of control, of the need to be understood by everyone around you. Because once you start stepping into the fullness of who you are, not everyone will celebrate you. Some will question you, others will doubt you, and some will try to pull you back. But here's the truth. When you're chosen, people won't always understand you. And that's okay. Because understanding is not the goal. Purpose is, impact is, legacy is. And the deeper you go into your calling, the less their opinions matter. Because you're not living for them. You're living for something far greater. And that something is the fire inside you, the undeniable force that refuses to be silenced. The part of you that knows there's more to life than what you see, that feels things others don't, that hears whispers of destiny in the stillness of night. That part of you, it's not asking for your permission anymore, it's demanding your action. So ask yourself, how much longer will you wait? How many more days will you spend pretending everything is fine when something inside you is screaming for change? How many more chances will you miss because you're afraid of what might happen if you step out? Because here's what happens when you do. You grow, you break through, you become, you stop hiding behind tradition and start standing in truth. You stop seeking validation and start living with conviction. You stop waiting for someone else to lead, and you begin to walk the path that only you were called to walk. And the moment you take that first real step, something shifts, not just in your life, but in the world around you. People begin to notice, not because you shouted your message from the rooftops, but because your presence speaks louder than words. Not because you demanded attention, but because your peace draws others in. Not because you claimed authority, but because your life begins to radiate something undeniable. Purpose, power, presence. And suddenly you realize that you were never meant to blend in. You were never supposed to fade into the background. You were never created to live small. You were born to rise, to lead, to awaken, to shift the atmosphere wherever you go. And the best part? You don't need a title to prove it. You don't need a platform to validate it. You don't need permission to live it. Because God's chosen never go to any church. They are the movement. They are the light. They are the change the world has been waiting for. And if you've ever felt different, if you've ever known there was something more, then you already know. Your time is now. Not someday, not after you get everything figured out. Now, right here, right now. The voice that called you before you were born is still speaking, still guiding, still empowering. All you have to do is answer. So take a deep breath, let go of fear, release the need for control, and step forward. Because the world needs what only you can bring. And the moment you do, you won't just change your life, you'll change the world.